Backslide by Black K. Cat. Chapter 23. Value. The sound of Kakashi's Chidori is unmistakable. Kurama knows it the same way he knows that Zabuza and Haku have seconds left, if that. There's no time even to curse. Kurama rips a square of paper from his weapons pouch, swings his leg over Mimiji's back, and orders, "Intercept the boy!" He doesn't wait for a response, but leaps, even as he calls up his wind chakra. No time to shape it, no room for error, and lightning flashes before his eyes, just a second to his left. But Kurama was trained for this, taught how to negate it by the Kakashi in his own time. There's no consideration of the circumstances, only reaction and instinct. He hits the ground on the balls of his feet, right in front of Zabuza, then rises, ignoring the sudden agony of the impact. Kakashi's directly in front of him, eyes wide and uncomprehending, with horror in their depths. But Kurama simply lashes out with every bit of speed he possesses. His hand, coated with wind chakra, knocks Kakashi's arm away, redirects the Chidori into the empty air beside them. Its energy crackles against his skin as it passes, but he ignores it, turning in a single smooth movement and slapping the seal paper against Zabuza's chest. It's the same seal he used on his courier mission with Genma and Raido, and even against one of the 7 swordsmen, it works perfectly, coming to life with a fizz of violet chakra. Zabuza cries out, startled and pained, and then drops like a stone. He's unconscious before he even hits the ground. Half a heartbeat later, the Chidori strikes stone, chips and shards exploding out and showering everyone nearby, but beyond the soft clatter of them falling, no noise follows. Kurama steps back, letting the twist of wind around his hand fade to nothing, and looks over the battleground. Sasuke is in the same state he was in Kurama's time, pierced with needles, but still alive. Even if it's hard to tell, Naruto looks a bit more battered, and surprisingly, or perhaps not, he's standing shoulder to shoulder with Sakura, who looks just as rough. Haku is sprawled out on the ground halfway between the genin and Zabuza, Momiji's paws planted on his shoulders as the fox looms over him. Tazuna is half cowered behind one of Naruto's clones, but looks unhurt. "Kurama!" Kakashi hisses, and the expression on his face is somewhere between disbelief, fury, and terror. The redhead winces because he knows the story of what happened with Rin, and he hadn't stopped to consider that before he'd acted. There hadn't been time, and 2 lives that hung in the balance. Those aren't the kind of odds that Kurama can ever overlook. "Kakashi," he returns with a faintly apologetic smile. "Sorry, but I think Kiryu will be better off in the long run with him alive." He looks at when Naruto is staring at him, wide-eyed, and smiles. "Naruto, are you okay?" A step forward, and of course that's the moment his knees choose to give out, carrying him to the ground as the ache in his chest redoubles. He gasps for breath, wondering if he's cracked his ribs again. Wraps his arms around his torso in the vague hope of making it better, but the breath won't come and stars spin in front of his eyes. Kurama has been injured before, and gravely. He's had to heal slowly on other occasions, much as he hates it, but he's never been able to keep from pushing himself when others are on the line. It used to drive his Sakura insane. More than once she'd threatened to tie him to a hospital bed. "Kuramani!" There are hands on his shoulders and a mop of blonde hair is bobbing in front of his eyes, a silver one just behind it. Kurama chokes on a cough, finally feeling his breathing even out, and reaches out to catch Naruto's wrist in a gentle grip. "Fine, I'm fine," he reassures the boy, managing a faint smile. "Nothing's bleeding at least, and for Shinobi that counts. I've just done a little too much, that's all." He squeezes Naruto's hand and lets go and allows himself to settle back on his knees with a weary sigh. "I can feel Sasuke's chakra from here. Why don't you make sure he doesn't wake up alone?" Naruto's eyes go wide, and the look on his face is one of heartbreaking relief. He scrambles to his feet, then hesitates, clearly torn between going to his teammate and staying with his cousin. Kakashi waves him off, crouching next to Kurama and laying a hand on his shoulder. "Go on, Naruto. I'll keep an eye on him." In a flash, Naruto is gone, racing towards the other 2 genin. Sakura is bent over Sasuke, expression stubbornly set, her hands glowing a weak green. The blonde crouches next to her, somewhere between worried and ecstatic, mouth moving quickly but voice too low to carry. Kurama watches him with relief bubbling in his chest, because he made it. "Better off with him alive?" Kakashi murmurs at his shoulder, sounding faintly amused. If his grip is still the slightest bit too tight, Kurama isn't about to mention it. Kurama offers him a quiet, strained smile and pushes to his feet. "Yagura won't be Mizukage much longer. Zabuza has already tried to assassinate him once and nearly succeeded. Can you imagine how valuable he'll be in another coup? one of the last loyal members of the Seven Swordsmen, an open advocate for change, who protected and raised a boy with a bloodline, they'll welcome him with open arms. Kakashi snored softly, looping a casual arm around Kurama's waist to support him, being careful of his ribs. Even Kiri isn't safe from you, I see, he says in dry amusement. Now where are you going? Momiji, let him up, Kurama says instead of answering, and in a silver blur the fox is on his feet and next to the redhead, offering himself as a crutch. Slowly, warily, Haku sits up, dark brown eyes never leaving the jonin. I know you, he says softly, meeting Kurama's gaze steadily. There's bewilderment buried deep in his expression, only just noticeable. Zabuza has spoken of you before. Uzumaki Kurama, the red maelstrom of lost Uzushio, and the one to take Hoshigaki Kisame's head. You're a bounty hunter. With a quick smile, Kurama tilts his head forward and reaches up, tapping a clawed finger against his hitayate. Konoha Jonin now, he corrects. And you, going by that fascinating bloodline, are of Kiri's old Yuki clan. I had thought they held that out. I could say the same of Uzushio's shinobi. Haku glances down at the tall silver fox, then across the battle-scarred bridge to where Sasuke is finally sitting up, his teammates packed closely in around him. When he turns back, his gaze is softened slightly. You saved Zabuza-san. Thank you. Purely on impulse, Kurama reaches forward, ignoring the slight flinch it earns him, and lays a hand on Haku's head. I've always thought, he said gently, that shinobi are human before they are anything else. Whether we're tools or not, it's just something extra, an addition, not what defines us. And I know in our line of work that there are far worse things to have than a heart. Haku ducks his head, looking away, but Kurama doesn't push. He winds his fingers in Momiji's ruff, leans into Kakashi's warm, lean strength, and lets the copynin lead him over to where Sasuke is just rising to his feet. The Uchiha's dark eyes snap to them as they near, settling on Kurama. The Sharingan is dormant again, but Kurama smiles at him, reaching out. Sasuke, you're alright. And you use the Sharingan. That's amazing. Kurama, Sasuke says, and it sounds faintly choked, thick with something Kurama can't name. A heartbeat later, Sasuke is pressed against him, arms wrapped tightly around his waist, and Kurama wavers for a moment in surprise before steadying, smiling, though he's not still entirely sure which of them moved first. Him, probably, because for all Sasuke's changed, he's still Sasuke. He weaves his fingers into Sasuke's dark hair, cups the back of his head, and hugs him carefully but tightly. It's something to be proud of, he murmurs. You were very brave. I'm proud of you. He raises his head, looks at the other two, battered but standing, and feels something in his chest ease and warm. All three of you. You somehow turned into powerful, courageous shinobi while I wasn't looking. You're incredible. Naruto's face is screwed up like he's trying not to cry, and a moment later, he's hugging the redhead as well, face pressed into his side just above the mostly healed stab wound. But I was scared, he admits, like it's a shameful secret. We all were, Sakura whispers, inching closer until Kurama wraps an arm around her shoulder and pulls her in. Well, that's why you're brave, Kurama informs them gently. You can't have courage unless you're scared, otherwise it's meaningless. Their eyes have aged, Kurama thinks, looking between the three. They're older in their hearts now, changed by a fight that was nearly the death of one of their own, and it was likely far more harrowing for these three, bound together as they are, than it was for Kurama's own team. But instead of breaking them, as it very well could have, it's only made them stronger. There's steel in them now, more than there ever was before, and it's shared equally between the three. Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke might cling to him, might look at Haku and Zabuza with weary, wounded eyes, but their resolve is even stronger now, tempered. Never again, Sakura whispers into the curve of Kurama's shoulder, as though answering that thought. Never! Naruto agrees, and there's something very close to anger in his voice, anger at himself rather than anyone else. We're not gonna let that kind of thing happen again. Sasuke makes a wordless sound of agreement, but for half a heartbeat, his eyes flicker crimson. Kurama wraps his arms as far around the three as they'll go, and knows that soon he'll have to step back, let them walk forward on their own. But these three are different people than his Team 7, friends and comrades in the very closest ways, and somehow, Kurama thinks that they'll be fine. They'll survive. They'll grow strong. And someday they'll be great enough to shake the very foundations of this world. He can't wait to see it. Kurama is hurt, but won't say anything about it, changing the subject whenever it comes up, and brushing off pointed comments as though he's too thick to understand them. It's a technique Kakashi is intimately familiar with. After all, that's what he himself does. But he's never before realized just how aggravating it is. They've made camp on the far side of the nearly completed bridge, where Haku and Zabuza's presence won't upset the villagers, while clones and one of Kurama's summons watch Tazuna and his family. At the moment, both missing-nin are skulking around the outer edges of the camp, looking out of place and fairly awkward, while the genin are clustered around Kurama and his soup pot. Zabuza, at least, is still fuming over Gato's rather poorly executed attempted betrayal. But Haku is already inching towards the fire, drawn to Kurama's smile the same way a magnet is to true north. Kakashi sympathizes, feeling that same pull himself, and also entirely unable to resist it. But his desire to go to the redhead is tempered by the memory of a Chidori aimed right at his heart, half an instant slower, and Kurama would have suffered the same fate as Rin, which is... Kurama can't even think about it without his blood running cold and a fine tremor taking hold of his muscles. It seems as though he's destined, doomed to lose all those he loves at his own hand or in circumstances of his own making. Only Minato breaks that pattern, and Kakashi is certain he's the exception that proves the rule. Stop brooding and eat, Kurama says right next to his ear, and only decades of experience as a shinobi keeps Kakashi from flinching. With a faintly narrow look, he accepts the bowl of miso soup, brimming with whatever vegetables the villagers were willing to sell. There's even eggplant, which makes Kakashi brighten a little. I'm not brooding, he says belatedly, trying to sound offended. Judging by the arched look Kurama levels him with, he falls a fair bit short. You are, the redhead counters swiftly, settling on Kakashi's left without waiting for an invitation. Though, granted, it's open ground in a forest at all. There's a long pause while Kakashi picks at his soup and Kurama watches him. And then Kurama murmurs softly, I'm sorry I took a risk like that, but there wasn't time for anything more elaborate, and I needed to save them. Kurama has a way, Kakashi reflects somewhat wryly, of somehow managing to rip a wound open and get right to the heart of it without wasting any time. Not even on niceties, which, considering his disposition, is a little strange. But then, of course, Kurama's hardly a saint, though he's certainly saintly. Kakashi has seen him tease and push and go, snark and trick, and use cunning wherever a straight line won't get him quick enough results. He's not shy about using violence either, from what Genma has said. He's also not the type to come at something sideways when head-on will suffice. Kakashi manages a soft chuckle, rubbing a hand through his flyaway hair. Just don't do it again, he says, as much an acceptance of that halfway apology as he's willing to give. Chidori isn't a nice way to die. He'll still be seeing Rin for a while in his dreams after all. After that, or maybe Kurama in her place. But he hadn't wanted to kill Zabuza either, honestly. Beat him up for refusing to acknowledge the collateral damage he was causing, maybe. But death is permanent. Shinobi training or not, Kakashi's never quite managed to forget that fact. Few ways are, I believe. Kurama seems to know what he's thinking, because he gives Kakashi a quick smile before glancing around the camp to where Zabuza is seated by a tree. Kubikiri Botcho lies on the ground beside him, just within arm's reach, and although he doesn't appear to be, Kakashi can tell he's keeping most of his attention on Haku, ready to spring to his defense if anything happens. They're all a little jumpy after the bridge. Kurama gives a soft sigh, leaning back on his hands with a faint wince. The Hokage isn't going to be pleased with me, he murmurs. Entirely unsympathetic, Kakashi slaps him on the shoulder and beams. You have my deepest condolences. After all, what are a few ignored stab wounds and broken ribs between friends, That gets him a dry, sideways look from amused purple eyes. And if you hadn't had one relatively fresh ninja and an intimidating summons to scare off Gato's men after Zabuza killed him, I'd have made do. Kakashi insists stubbornly. Clones would have worked. Kurama's smile is almost startlingly bittersweet. I'm sure they would have, he whispers, then lets himself drop to lie flat on the ground with a sigh. His eyes flutter shut, and even though Kakashi knows he isn't asleep yet, he still can't bring himself to disturb the redhead. Instead, he picks up his bowl and heads over to pass it off to the genin, who has gotten stuck with the washing up. Then, with only a moment's hesitation, he heads over to join Zabuza under the spreading oak. "Pretty boy's a fool," the missing-nin says at length, folding his arms over his chest. "Optimistic, and willing to take a chance on people," Kakashi counters. Zabuza just gives him a flat look. "Like I said, a fool." But there's no bite to the words, and he's watching Haku, who has somehow been dragged into helping do the dishes, with an expression that's distinctly fond. He hasn't tried to leave yet, either. Kakashi takes a moment to marshal his thoughts, then says, entirely offhand, "I heard that Terumi Mei was going to be traveling to Kumo in a week or so, looking for political support. She's supposed to be a great diplomat." With a huff, Zabuza rolls his eyes. "Save it. Uzumaki already gave me the whole song and dance about why I should give her a chance. 2 bloodlines," Kakashi adds casually, as though he didn't say anything. "That pretty much guarantees you won't have a problem with Haku. You're lucky Konoha are renowned for their subtlety, Hatake. Otherwise, you'd be the farthest thing from a genius." "Mama, I'm just making conversation. It's up to you whether or not you take anything away from it." Zabuza rolls his eyes again, then rises briskly to his feet, pulling Kubikiri Bocho along with him. "Bounty hunter," he says, "you're looking rather more bestial than your bingo book entry would have one think." From his position stretched out on the ground, Kurama opens one violet eye. "Didn't you ever learn not to believe everything you read?" He sits up casually, flicking his clawed fingers and raking them through his hair, and then offers Zabuza his most charming smile. I feel like I've been getting rusty lately settling down in Konoha and all. Perhaps I should take your head as well, for practice." Kakashi can just make out the missing-nin's bloodthirsty grin from underneath the bandages. "Pretty thing like you is more than welcome to try, but you should know that I didn't get my nickname as the Demon of the Mist just from sitting around." He surveys the assembled shinobi for a long moment, eyes narrowing, and then jerks his chin and turns away. "Come on, Haku, we're leaving." "Yes, Zabuza-san." The boy rises obediently and hurries to fall into step with him. He doesn't question the sudden departure. Naruto does, though. "Hey!" he cries, scoring his shoulder like the words are a challenge, and given his strange attachment to Haku, they might very well be. "Where are you going?" Zabuza doesn't pause, just raises a hand in farewell without looking back. "North. I heard Lightning Country's nice this time of year. And who knows, maybe we'll meet someone interesting on the way." Kurama laughed. And on anyone else, it would sound like triumphant victory. But on him, it's simply amused. Hopeful, too. "Best of luck," he calls after the retreating pair. "Haku, don't let him do anything stupid, please." Haku glances back over his shoulder with a swift, secretive smile and nods, then hurries to catch up with his guardian. They vanish soundlessly into the trees, and soon even the hum of their chakra fades away to nothing. But Kakashi's satisfied. For a mission that was a disaster from the very start, that didn't end so badly. "You, Uzumaki, are a ridiculous, reckless idiot!" Genma growls, crossing his arms over his chest and leveling a glare at the redhead. Beside him, Raido is painfully amused. "Your turn," he says without an ounce of sympathy, sliding past Kurama to go and lurk behind Kakashi. "I had to listen to him rant the whole way here. Just take it like a man, alright?" Kakashi looks interested. "Oh?" he asks Genma, voice bright. For more reasons than the obvious. If anything, Genma's scowl deepens. "What, getting attacked by an S-rank missing-nin and the leader of the Akatsuki? Beaten him badly enough that he ended up unconscious for 2 days, and then hurrying off without backup isn't enough," he snaps. Kurama flinches. "Ah," Raido thinks, settling back to watch the fireworks. So, he hasn't told them. 2 days? Naruto demands, sounding aghast. Raido glances down to take in his expression and has to bite back a grin at the plant-sized glare being leveled at the former bounty hunter's back. "Kurama-ni, you said you were fine!" "I am!" Kurama raises his hand as though to fend off the boy. The claws are definitely new, Raido notes, raising an eyebrow. He's assuming they and the markings come from some sort of bloodline that Kurama simply hasn't turned off yet. "Really, it's nothing!" Kakashi is also glaring at the redhead. "Stab wounds are nothing." "Kunai," Genma elaborates helpfully. "To go with the broken ribs, punctured lung, multiple contusions and lacerations, and a 4-inch gash in his arm." The Uchiha boy twitches, looking half a second away from marching up to his teammate's cousin and wrapping him up in cotton. Punctured lung? The pink-haired Kuramaji sounds incredulous. Kurama-san, you could do severe damage. Hey! Kurama interrupts the flurry of concern, his expression faintly irritated. Why do you think I look like this right now? I'm using my bloodline for healing. I'm fine. Honestly. We talked to Tazuna already, Genma says, voice sharp. With Kato dead, the threat to the bridge is gone. He paid us, so we're heading back to Konoha tonight. The Hokage is very interested in discussing the consequences of nearly giving us both heart attacks when we came back and found you gone. That note was singularly unhelpful. Kurama winces. Sorry? In my defense, I wasn't thinking clearly at the time. Yes, we're well aware. Painkillers and vast amounts of physical agony tend to do that. Kurama, I thought you said it was only an Grand Commission. It was, and it wouldn't have been a problem except I got ambushed on my way back. Really though, stop fussing, I'm fine. You're not. Back to Konoha. March. Genma-san, no. And Rhino, if you start with the mother hen noises again, you will be sleeping in the guest room with Kotetsu and Izumo until next year. Kurama, start walking. Everyone else fall in. I thought you were supposed to be the team leader, Kakashi mutters as they're all herded and bullied into position. Rhino almost snorts at the idea. You want to try giving him an order when he's like this? A shadow falls over them, and Rhino wonders vaguely, through the sheer terror that bolts down his spine, how Genma manages to loom over him even when he's a good 4 inches shorter. Rhino. Yes, dear. One of Konoha's most feared Anmu captains answers meekly and obeys.